Hey, I'm Alex,
And I'm Brandon.
and welcome to Living Electric.
We're both content creators and electric vehicle enthusiasts.
And through this podcast, we hope to share our experience with owning electric vehicles and help you join the electric life. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Living Electric. We're here with episode 2 in season 2. Today, we're going to get into more of car maintenance with an EV, as well as some reliability. Hopefully kind of share our experience with any kind of repairs we've had to have done. Talk about how to take care of your battery, because that is a big part of EV ownership that kind of goes overlooked. Even though there isn't as much maintenance, you do have a large battery to take care of. And then we might get into some right to repair stuff as well, because that's kind of a hot topic around EVs and just consumer electronics and consumer goods in general. So I know Brandon's done a little research on that, so don't want to leave him hanging on on talking about that. So
Lots of YouTube videos.
yeah. So do you want to start off and just talk about like what kind of repairs or any kind of maintenance you've had to do with your bolts, and I can share the same.
Yeah. So fortunately, with our Bolt, we haven't had to do many. Well, actually, I don't think any powertrain repairs. There's been some recalls on the batteries, as we all know, with the 2017 through 2019 Bolts. Fortunately, ours was not part of that. But the physical repairs that we had to do were more on the interior. We've had to replace the driver's seat about 3 times, going on a 4th time. There's been some other parts that have kind of failed in terms of holding up to like external temperatures in the sun. Things like that. We had to have both headlights replaced already because of bleaching and all that fun stuff.
Gotcha. But nothing that's prevented the car from driving, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, the car's been solid powertrain wise.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I definitely don't baby that.
Yeah.
I don't baby it at all. What about you with your Tesla?
Yeah, fortunately, I have been very lucky. I haven't had to have any repairs done. I've probably touched on it on my YouTube channel and one of the podcasts in the past, but when I first got the car, I had them just repair some interior trim. But besides that, I haven't done anything and haven't spent any money on getting any kind of repairs done, which is definitely a welcome change coming from a like coupe sports car that needed oil changes all the time and took premium fuel and all that fun stuff. So very, very lucky to be in an EV now, because that was one of the reasons I wanted to switch to an EV as well, is just because overall it just needs so much less maintenance. I mean, probably the biggest one is oil changes. I think that's what most people kind of talk about, because you don't have to worry about that. But I mean, brakes are another thing. I don't know if you've had to do anything with brakes yet, but
Not yet. I'm more worried about tire wear from all the torque. Yeah. But I agree with you with the complications of like driving a combustion vehicle. We had a diesel, a TDI, and I hope that doesn't surprise anybody, but this was many years ago, and the transmission was $1,000 every year to maintain, which is just ridiculous on top of fuel costs and oil changes.
Yeah, and overall, EVs are just so simple compared to an ICE vehicle. At least mechanically, they're very simple. I mean, you've got the big battery, and then you've got the motor attached to the wheels, and that's it. There's no transmission, no like fuel system, none of that stuff. Like, there's just so much less to worry about. That's definitely the big thing, is oil changes. I think, what are the other big ones with regular cars usually? Brakes are the other one that come to mind, which we do have brakes, but Regen Braking, right? So
Yeah, it makes them last a lot longer.
Yeah.
Actually, touching on brakes, our ID4 actually has rear drum brakes, because Volkswagen, this is a weird way of saying it. I was going to say prophesized, but they foresaw the future that the brakes wouldn't be used. So they coated them in like a metal, like a drum brake.
Really?
So they are protected. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool. I know a lot of people like to bash on it, saying that it's out-of-date technology, but it's protecting the brakes.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be used as much.
That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, because with Regen Braking, your motor, essentially, that helps move the wheels, when you let off the accelerator, that energy that generally is just letting you coast down the road then goes into recharging your batteries, but then in turn slows down the car. So you're not using those brakes as much. I've even heard people not use their brakes so far that their like brake pads have warped because they've essentially been doing one pedal driving and don't need to ever use their brakes. So brakes should last much longer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I worked at Tesla, we actually had an example. I think it was a 2013 Model S. He had 80,000 miles on the vehicle, and it was still the original brakes.
That's incredible.
And he had to have them replaced because they weren't used.
Yeah.
Yeah, they worked.
That's wild.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. So other part of that though, because you're switching out from the kind of mechanical transmission, oil changes, all that stuff, you do trade that off for a battery now, which is like kind of your fuel. But because the battery's so big and expensive, you do want to do some things to keep care of that. I think I did a video on this on my YouTube channel, actually, so we might link that in the show notes afterwards. But yeah. There's kind of three main things you want to avoid when you are driving an EV to keep better care of the battery. First off is just avoid really high states of charge and really low states of charge. So if you are plugged in, you probably don't want to go above 80 or 90% charge unless you really need that extra range, right? So I'm sure you've charged up to 100% before you leave on a big long road trip, but like day to day, you're sitting at 80 or 90, I'm guessing.
Yep. Yeah, I actually sometimes keep it at 70%.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I mean, you don't have to.
I don't need it.
It's funny, actually, the like equilibrium of the battery is at 50%. So that's when the battery is healthiest. So the farther you get away from 50%, the less the battery likes it and the more damage you can cause to the battery. So definitely want to avoid very high states of charge, but then also very low states of charge. So if your battery does get very low, it's best to plug it in as soon as you can, which is kind of natural because you're probably going home or going to a charging station to charge it up anyway.
Yep.
So that's a pretty easy one. And then also, if you are able to, it's best to avoid high temperatures as well. And generally that happens because you're charging at very high rates, very high current. That's bad for the batteries long term if you're doing that a lot. Which we were just saying before the podcast, I'm kind of nervous about that because I've been supercharging almost exclusively since I don't have home charging. Obviously, very, very high charge rates, very high temperatures, not great for the battery long term. But I'm sure for you that's pretty easy because you just charge at home, right?
Yeah. I actually I think almost at 21,000 miles and haven't noticed any loss of state of charge or anything like that.
That's great. Yeah, which
is impressive. But I would say that I think maybe I've fast charged less than 15 times so far in ownership. So yeah. It's been a bit since I've been to a fast charger. But have you noticed any degradation on your Tesla?
A little bit. And I keep my battery on percent versus showing miles, so I honestly don't even notice like if it's degraded or not, which I just kind of like try not to think about it because your battery might degrade, but then like you're able to get more miles out of it if you're driving more efficiently as well. So I think it all kind of balances out depending on what kind of driving you're doing. So when I do switch it over to miles, it shows about 300 miles of range, which when I got the car, I think it was around 310 or 308. I can't remember exactly what it was, but so not a ton of loss. Important thing to remember with battery degradation as well is your battery is naturally going to lose some capacity over time. That's just how lithium-ion batteries work.
Just like cell phones.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to that in a second because they aren't like cell phones where they die after 2 years.
No, not like cell phones in that aspect.
Yeah, and they. But with degradation, you're generally going to see a bigger drop off in like that first year of ownership. But then after that, it plateaus pretty sharply, and you're not going to see like consistent large drop off. It's usually just kind of a slow burn. So it's really not something to worry about. Batteries should last a while. We've got, at least on my car, I think I have an 8-year, 120,000 mile warranty on the battery.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
If it drops below 70% of its original capacity, then Tesla's on the hook for that. So,
well, you better keep driving.
Yeah, exactly.
You've only got 6 years left. Yeah, I think the battery warranty for the Bolt is, I think it's 8 years, 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
But the one thing I've noticed with GM, besides everything with like the battery fires, their battery technology is actually pretty reliable.
Yeah.
I know when I had a Volt, I was part of the Volt forum, and somebody had 350,000 miles on their Volt, and it had only lost like 3% of battery.
Wow.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But I know that there's such a buffer for that reason. It doesn't allow you to use the full capacity of the battery pack.
Exactly.
Which is actually something I wanted to bring up with the German EVs, like, Porsche, Volkswagen, and Audi. There's such a big gap between what you can actually utilize and what the whole battery pack has a capacity of.
Oh, okay.
And I think the reason is because the German EVs can charge at such high rates at like DC fast chargers, especially the Taycan. I bet they're trying to prevent any massive loss of battery state of charge. But I'm actually curious to know how Taycans will hold up with charging as quickly as they do. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Yeah, so the big misconception, and I get YouTube comments like, I swear it's like every fifth comment saying, like, yeah, that car is great now, but it's not going to be so fun when you got to pay X amount of dollars to replace the battery in 3 or 4 years. And that is like one of the huge misconceptions, because we're all used to coming from cell phones where the batteries do last about 2 years before you're like, you can't even get through the day without your battery dying, right?
Yeah, I know, for an example, like I have an iPhone 12 and I got it less than a year ago, and I've already lost 8% of my battery.
Wow.
And I literally charge it once a day.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous. It's like a brand new phone. It shouldn't be.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, so EV batteries are quite literally built different.
Yes.
They are designed to handle constant charging and discharging, because they are a car and you're going to be driving it every day. You want it to last 10 to 15 years before you replace it. So companies and these manufacturers that are building EVs know that, and they're building the batteries to last that long. So like they said, they are avoiding those things like high states of charge. They recommend you only charge it to 90%, whereas like we charge our cell phones to 100% every night. At least I know I do.
Yep.
Charge my laptop to 100%.
I do too.
Like like all this stuff where our batteries are constantly dying, that's usually because our charging habits aren't very good, and just the battery management systems in general. They don't build the phones to last that long.
No. Yeah, there's no battery management system like liquid flowing through your phone like you have in cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the one piece of technology that a lot of manufacturers utilize to help increase the lifespan of electric vehicle batteries is battery management systems. And every manufacturer is different depending on how they want to utilize cooling and heating the battery pack. Most of the vehicles, I would actually say all of the vehicles on the road now, except for the Nissan Leaf, have liquid-cooled battery management systems.
Yeah.
The Leaf is air-cooled, which is why you see more degradation in those vehicles than you do any other electric vehicles on the road. They really prepare for, heating and cooling, making sure that the battery pack is healthy and happy, and just a lot of TLC.
Yeah, exactly.
Tender, loving care of the battery.
Yeah. And temperature is the biggest thing, and that's really what that battery management system is doing most of the time, is just keeping the battery at a comfortable temperature, so it doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold, and it's gonna end up lasting longer because of that.
Alex, I wanted to ask, just because it's been a bit since I've had hands-on experience with Tesla, does your Model 3 have active battery management where if the car's not on, it's still releasing heat or it's still warming the battery pack?
I believe so. Now, I don't know. I know in the winter it will kick on generally. If I preheat the car, it'll preheat the battery as well. But I'm not sure if it's just sitting in a hot parking lot. I think it does kick the fans on at least to try to cool down the battery.
Okay.
I definitely hear it go on when I'm supercharging, all that kind of stuff. But I've also left it parked for a week straight, and I haven't really noticed if it goes on or off because the battery state of charge didn't go down that much. So I'm not sure if it was actually doing anything. So I'm not 100% sure. I know those vehicles generally try to keep the battery at a comfortable temperature, but I'm not sure how active that really is.
Because our Bolt does not turn on the system unless it's plugged in or unless you're preconditioning the vehicle.
Yeah.
There's been times where I've gone out and it's I don't know, maybe 20 degrees and the car is just freezing.
Yeah.
Same when it's like super hot.
Yeah.
Does nothing.
Yeah.
Just sits there.
Yeah, because mine will show like the cold soaks, like it'll have the snowflake on the battery. So it definitely like is getting cold enough where it like something isn't kicked on, but also I don't leave it plugged in. So that might be another issue as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how the ID4 is going to do this winter.
Yeah, definitely.
On the topic of cooling systems and repairs, this is a good segue to our right to repair topic. So YouTuber Rich Rebuilds actually just did a recent video that is actually causing a lot of waves in the electric vehicle community. It's discussing a brand new Model 3 that had damage to its cooling system and how much Tesla was going to charge the customer versus if the customer went to a third-party repair shop. Mm-hmm. And the cost difference is insane. And we can definitely get to that later on once we talk more about what right to repair is.
Yeah, so if we kind of take a couple steps back here, right to repair is something you've probably been heard thrown around in the news and some of these headlines and stuff, and it's definitely a big issue and definitely something you should do some research on, probably outside of this podcast, because we're probably not going to do a great job explaining it. So but at a basic level, it's essentially you as a consumer, when you buy something, you should have the rights to repair that device, but also keep your warranty and like keep support from Apple, from Microsoft, or whoever piece of technology you bought, right? So I like to liken a lot of things to phones because that's something a lot of people are familiar with. So let's say you buy an iPhone and you crack the screen. You have to go to an Apple certified repair person to do that screen replacement for you. You can't just buy parts like online and then do that screen replacement yourself. You can, but then if any other issues arise in the future, Apple's going to be like, oh, well, you opened up your phone and replaced the glass, so we can't help you, right? So there's definitely two sides to it, because you don't want, obviously companies don't want people messing with their phones and like messing with things to possibly screw things up even further. But then also they're getting less income because because people are able to do it themselves and they can't charge as much for those kind of repairs. And then on the consumer side, obviously you want to be able to like control and fix your own device if you're capable of it, right? So and we were chatting before this episode, phones is like a small example, but cars have gotten so technologically advanced now. We were saying EVs are very mechanically simple, but all of these software and different control systems that go into the vehicle are getting very complicated, not just on EVs, but also on combustion vehicles as well. So anytime you want to get something repaired, you've got to go to some authorized repair person that's got to do a diagnostic on your specific computer system that's in your car and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, like if something happens to your vehicle, you might think it's simple, but then they have to pull the logs and that could take hours to look through and then they identify it. I've actually gotten to the point where I don't even call cars, I just call them computer on wheels, because that's kind of what they are now.
Definitely.
That's literally what they are. But talking about software, I actually wanted to discuss our ID4 that we just purchased. A few weeks ago, we actually had our ID4 in the shop because when my husband was driving home, all these error messages popped up. There was something with the battery, something with the drive unit. There was something where the driver assistance package just went out. But the car was handling all right. Like there wasn't any issue. And then when we took the car in, it was there for a week and a half, and they had to get Volkswagen's IT engineers from Germany involved with the whole process because it was the first ID4 that they ever had. But what they did is that all the physical mechanical parts were good. Everything was good. The battery, the drive unit, whatever. But they actually had to wipe the entire software from the vehicle and reload it. And now the car's perfect. There's no issues. It was just something wrong with the software.
Yeah, and that's a common theme. I'm sure all you listeners have probably kind of seen with a lot of other technology is these software issues just can't be fixed by normal people without access to the documentation or the actual software, like from Volkswagen, right? You would have to
Yeah.
like probably be a software engineer or some sort of like person familiar with software and be able to like load that on the vehicle to try to fix that sort of issue. So,
Which was, it blew my mind the extent that we had to get everybody involved to just figure out what the main issue was.
yeah.
And I think that that's where, right to repair comes in. Like, I feel like if you are like a software engineer, I feel like maybe you should have the right to pull the logs and check the software. But does that software belong to you?
Yeah.
Like, should you have access to that?
Exactly.
Like, I think that that's where a lot of the controversy comes from.
Yeah, and a big thing like if you do like some research on the whole John Deere thing, like they're kind of a big, I guess, bad guy in this in this whole right to repair thing because not to like ruffle any John Deere fans' feathers, but they're kind of like been a big player in this right to repair thing because all of their tractors now, like obviously a tractor is very like mechanical thing, but all of John Deere's tractors now are so technologically advanced. They have computers built into them now. Like they're very advanced pieces of technology, and they don't provide any kind of documentation to help farmers or anybody using their tractors help repair the tractor if there's an issue. So they've got to go to like a certified John Deere repairman who's going to charge way more than like just trying to fix it themselves with parts they can get.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a whole thing. It's really, I think my stance on it is I think companies need to provide better documentation for things and kind of like put more trust in the consumers and kind of give us some more credit, because I think a lot of us are smarter and would be able to troubleshoot a lot of these issues before we even bring it in to get repaired. So,
and I definitely think that that's where Rich Rebuilds and his whole team and effort in creating like a third-party repair system for vehicles, specifically electric vehicles.
Yeah.
With his electrified garage. I think there's multiple garages across the country. I think mainly in Florida right now.
Yeah.
But that video, I watched last night, it was a driver in New York City, and he hit something with his 2021 Model 3, and it damaged the connector from the cooling pipes to the battery pack. And Tesla was going to charge him $16,000 because they stated the battery had to be removed and replaced, the entire battery, not that plastic connector.
Yeah.
And the entire time, they were talking with the owner, and he was talking about how he's not worried that they're going to void his warranty. He feels like he's doing the right thing by supporting a third party, repair shop.
Yeah.
And it cost him $700, and they replaced the connector with a steel connector, so it should hold up better.
Yeah.
And that was it. So, and I know that Tesla has been a big proponent of you should bring your vehicles to their shops to get repaired. But I think that like if there's reliable, good garages out there, why not take your car there if you feel like you can trust them.
Exactly.
And I know Rich Rebuild has that engineering background, so I would absolutely trust him.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of there's definitely lots of sides to it. It's a complicated issue. I would definitely suggest watching Marquez Brownlee's Right to Repair video. He does a great breakdown of kind of all sides of it, what it is, like the background of it, all that kind of stuff. We'll link some other good videos in the show notes for you guys to check out. But that's definitely an issue that not just touches cars, but also a lot of other electronics and any kind of products we're buying nowadays. In the old days, you could just say like, you would get a like fully fledged manual for any kind of piece of tech you bought. If you bought a fridge, you would get the full manual in there. It would have like part numbers in the back with like parts you would need to order if certain things break. Here's what to do if this breaks. Here's how to maintenance this, like everything. And now it's like we just hire people to do that and just like pay them way more so that they can fix it.
Actually,
so
I do have a prime example if we want to put this in.
Yeah.
So with our new AC unit, it came with a 10-year warranty, but literally no owner's manual, nothing. All we got was a piece of paper with the serial number and like another number to register for the warranty, and that was it.
Jeez.
And there's no documentation online. I actually had to like dive further into the website to figure out what to do. But basically, like if anything happens to that, it's out of my hands.
Yeah.
I have to call somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and a lot of that
I
is
don't
just
trust
leaving,
myself.
just leaving consumers in the dark, really, because like
Yeah.
being an engineer, I want to know how everything works and how to fix it, how to troubleshoot it, everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and now it's like we're not even getting manuals anymore or any kind of documentation that helps you know how to use your device or piece of anything. So
yeah, let alone especially with like brand new cars, there was like no walk around for for our Bolt or our ID4. I mean, thankfully we knew what we were looking into, but like I think that like average consumer might want more of that,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
I think that's a solid expectation.
Yeah, I think I've heard some, even on our like local owners group for Tesla, is like a lot of people are saying like Tesla's gotten less and less involved on the delivery thing. They're just like, all right, here's your car. We're going to help you set up your key. You're good to go. Like, which again, that's putting a lot of like pressure on consumers to like do their own research and figure things out themselves versus having like, now the Model 3 and like the Tesla vehicles do have really good manuals. So like if you read the manual beforehand, you would probably like know a lot of the stuff, but just getting walked around something as big as a car is definitely a good thing to do. So
I remember when I worked at Tesla, there was one time I spent 4 hours with a customer with their brand new Model X, and
that's
like
awesome.
He wanted me to go on the road with him, make sure that he was comfortable, and I actually missed a Kesha concert because I was spending time with a consumer. But it was something I loved, like and he absolutely deserved that time. So I'm happy I could provide that to him. But I have heard the same thing. It's very, here's your key, we'll set it up.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not like, what it used to be.
No.
Not to add another boomer thing.
Yeah, and things have changed obviously too. Like Teslas used to be pretty like new vehicles. I'm guessing like the delivery centers weren't delivering a ton of vehicles back when you worked there, and now it's like they're delivering like 10 or 12 a day. Like
yeah. We would do that like in a week.
Yeah.
Like a weekend. Yeah. Most days we only had like maybe 2 or 3 deliveries.
Wow.
So you had the time.
Definitely. Almost going back to right to repair, your repair options right now, like if I was in a bad accident and like hit part of my battery pack, like I don't feel comfortable bringing that to anybody else but Tesla right now. Like I would go right back to the Tesla dealership. So
yeah, I feel like if the electrified garage was anywhere near Ohio, I feel like I could trust like their group to handle that, because I know they do like EV conversions, EV builds, things like that.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
But I agree. If there was ever like a damage to the Bolt or the Volkswagen battery pack, it would immediately go back to the dealership, which has me concerned because at least with Tesla, you have Tesla trained engineers to work on your vehicle, but not a hit at the dealerships. I don't exactly know how they train their staff, like their repair people. And that to me is a concern.
Yeah.
Especially with new vehicles. Yeah.
Well, I've heard too with some of those OEMs that don't have as many electric vehicles, they have like a rotating mechanic that'll jump between dealerships with EVs and is just trained on like EVs specifically, but it's not like they have somebody like in-house there that's constantly working on ID4s. Right.
Yep.
So
yeah, we ran into that with the Bolt actually. They had to leave my car sitting there for 2 days because the person trained with electric vehicles wasn't available.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's like already noticing it. Hopefully, as they become more prominent, we'll see more. But yeah. So routine maintenance, definitely like much less. But just being such a new vehicle market, kind of those bigger repairs are definitely going to be more of a headache. And I think that's something like you just kind of got to be aware of with a newer piece of technology. So that is one of the kind of downfalls of EVs, I guess, is like if something really bad happens, then you might be waiting longer just because they are a little bit more complicated. We might not have as many technicians available, like that sort of stuff. But day to day, like, I mean, I don't even think about maintenance really with my car. So that's been great. Yeah. Same here. Yeah, it doesn't really cross my mind. So we hope that this episode maintained your listenership, and if not, we have the right to repair it in the next episode.
That's right.
Yeah. That's my dad joke for today. I'll work on fixing that later. Oh, there's another one. So if anybody has any questions on right to repair, or if you want to talk more about that, definitely check out our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter at livingelectric_, Instagram at Living Electric Podcast, as well as Facebook at Living Electric Podcast. Definitely love to talk more about this topic with everyone.
Yep, and we'll see you in the next episode.